The major FOMC meeting is less than 24 hours away, and it will undoubtedly have an effect on the markets. The reason we have been waiting patiently for this is that, similar to previous FOMC meetings, the Fed's next move could undoubtedly have a large impact on the markets. What matters most is that everyone is adamant about us receiving rate reductions. I will now cover a great deal of material in this video. I'll explain why we should definitely be concentrating on interest rate decreases, as well as what to anticipate in tomorrow's meeting. Let's truly review some of the points. First, let us briefly examine the market. So, the market capitalization is $3.86 trillion. Once more, this market has not seen many changes. Fear and greed are still at about 63. Altcoin season 38 is 38 out of 100. Bitcoin is still about 118K. Ethereum is still around about 3,800. And XRP is down 1.26% over the past day. The majority of cryptocurrencies are still down by 10% or more, while some are down by 5% or more. Once more, this is due to the way Ethereum has been trading. For the past few days, we have simply been in a chop. In fact, I could quickly show you entire Ethereum's chart. This is how Ethereum has looked over the past 7 days. We have been steadily declining ever since we reached that pleasant peak on the 27th. And this is how Ethereum has looked over the past month. This month marks the end of Bitcoin. This month marks the end of XRP. Once more, we are not yet witnessing any noteworthy price movement on these charts. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, the primary focus of our Ethereum analysis is whether or if there is a possible sell-off from the high resistance levels. And on the weekly, I can actually show you guys that very quickly. Our most recent upward rise, hit around 3,800. On a few exchanges, it did reach 3,900. This is obviously based on a chart of coin market capitalization. However, if we examine this, we see that it is all opposition that we must overcome. Additionally, there has been pushback since at least 2021. Therefore, it will be difficult for Ethereum to truly overcome this obstacle. This also applies to Bitcoin at the moment. Bitcoin continues to struggle. Additionally, let's visit the daily resistance is still being fought by Bitcoin up here at about 120K. We're still keeping an eye out for this to break. It will be crucial to keep an eye on these charts today in case either of these two levels breaks significantly. $117,000 or $120,000. I'm still keeping an eye on Bitcoin to see if we can perhaps bring that wick down to about $112. This will undoubtedly present us with some excellent buying chances, which is why I maintain advising that we have some steady coins on the sidelines for today's FOMC meeting, because, as I will discuss, I do not anticipate a rate decrease, but it will undoubtedly affect the market. However, this is precisely what I'm keeping an eye out for in terms of a significant sell-off or something similar in Ethereum and Bitcoin. The main levels I'm keeping an eye on are a possible retest of $3,047 or even closer to the high range of about $3,500. I am therefore quite comfortable with anything that falls within this range. Because we are encountering significant resistance at the top, I do believe that we may see a great retest of this level. And for us, this range is a little bit below the next big break to the upside above all of this resistance. So it would be a really interesting location to watch for any major significant price activity on Ethereum. So, in general, you shouldn't expect anything too outrageous. I'm not anticipating significant market declines or anything of the sort, but given the extent of Bitcoin's and Ethereum's dominance, all coins will undoubtedly experience an exaggerated decline. For this reason, we're concentrating on XRP as an example. The most important thing to look for with XRP is a decline from these recent lows. These recent lows shouldn't really be lost. Should we do so, it would result in a somewhat more pronounced decline in XRP. And the initial level I'm keeping an eye on is just around $2.72. I'm keeping an eye on XRP to target between $2.60 and $2.75. If we see a decline in XRP from these prior lows, and if we begin to see that inflated decline in altcoins as a whole. However, let's quickly examine a few points. First, the CIO at BlackRock is now advocating for interest rate cuts from the Fed. As a result, the Fed is beginning to face significant pressure to lower interest rates. Check this out then. Examine the housing market, paying special attention to how lower incomes are affected. The lower income individuals that borrow today are negatively affected and infected by the current rates. You can genuinely lower housing prices if we lower the rate. You construct more homes. In fact, you lower inflation. Therefore, even if the economy is doing rather well, I believe it is fairly consistent to lower interest rates. We're heading toward a reduced rate of inflation, and we might be able to bring it down. Depending on which side of the curve you look at, Today's inflation break-even points range from 2.5 to 2.75. Therefore, the funds rate remains higher than the rate of inflation even if it is reduced to 3.25. Therefore, even though the economy is doing well, I believe we have lots of room to drop it. Take a look at the fact. Well, listen, this is very, very obvious. Given the current level of inflation, I do believe that rate decreases should be implemented at this time. However, I continue to believe that July is too soon, which we will discuss. Here, we also have Trump's demand that Powell lower interest rates by 3 points. Trump claims that the Fed should lower interest rates by 3 percentage points, with each reduction saving $360 billion. A sensible person would cut Powell. Take a look. We ought to be down 3 points. Having said that, I hope you all found this video entertaining. You can follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord description below if you guys really enjoy it. 2. Subscribe to notifications below for more free stuff. Having stated that, I want to thank everyone for watching. Goodbye.